Bash, guys. It is a separate paid ticket to Disneyland's California Adventure, and it's a party. See, look, we're partying. People come dressed up in their costumes. This was my favorite costume that I saw. And look, even the characters dress up. Shout out to the characters that dress up, and shout out to anybody who knows what's happening there. Let's do the characters now, the meet and greet.
You're supposed to say, you're doing great today.
We're doing great.
I know, no one has to tell me.
Oh my goodness.
Step right up to see the most amazing performance you've ever heard of. The Sid Show Circuit.
I do make the performances live quite easily. I don't take a bad photograph, so every portfolio is magnificent.
I didn't. But that actor is very talented. I'm a little jealous, I must say. Just a little.
I promise I don't lie. Except that one time. Are you here to see the most powerful being? Up the right hand. So now it's my Oggie Boogie Bash here.
We need you over on the side over here. You turned into a zombie.
Nothing quite as alluring, as enchanting as the you. Keep moving, you all look like the walking dead.
Sands of Sleepy Hollow, long, long ago, tiptoed Ichabod Crane, nervously slowly. For he'd heard the dreadful legend that townsfolk told of a Halloween spirit, fiendish and bold. Beware the headless horseman.
This may be the last time you hear my Oogie Boogie song. Look at this guy. He's ancient. He's ugly. I gotta tell you, I don't know which is worse. Well. So this is what kids consider scary these days. Ah, you're joking. You're joking. Your hope
What's up, guys? It's your girl Matt Cox with Maccouture Crafting. I just finished hanging out at Oggie Boogie Bash. It was the first opening day and it was super incredible. I got some great inspiration and I can't wait to show it to you guys. All right, bye-bye.
So I googled some Oogie Boogie squeals and things, and this is what popped up. So this is what my quilt is based off of. I think I did a pretty good interpretation of that loungefly purse and the pins and the roulette wheel, and even the quilting has dice on it. I realized that I made an error as I was doing this video on the backing. Oh well, who cares? Not me. Alright, so when I was looking at that backpack and the pen, I was trying to figure out which colors I was going to do and which ones I was going to pull to the front and was I going to do it exactly. And I've really been enjoying halves, rectangle, triangles lately. And so this was the perfect time to try that out. So the first thing I do is I start with making the wedges and kind of designing the wedges. And I knew that I wanted them to have that lime green strip in between them. And the Creative Grids Cheryl Phillips ruler will allow you to do that with the proper measurements. It has the actual marking on the side so that you can incorporate a 1/2 inch strip, which comes out very nicely, which is why I'm using this ruler and not the traditional big fat ruler that I'm using. And I want to say this quilt is a little bit smaller than my browns usually. I think this one measures 65 across as opposed to my big old 70 inches across. Still a good size throw, just a little bit more on the traditional size. So I cut some strips and I sewed them together, and then from there I subcut again and I'm cutting the bottom portion of these wedges. I'm going to use the special feature built into this ruler to do the actual extension. But I just sewed a really tiny, I think it was 3/4 of an inch, so that I got that little 1/4 inch strip around the tip, just to give it some more interest towards the center of the quilt. I wanted to give it some color down there. So in order to do the strips on the side, you sew another strip piece to the side and then you cut off the 1/4 inch that you just sewed. So I sewed that lime green to the side of the wedge. Now I'm going to line that up with the special feature on this ruler and cut off the excess. And then I'll have a wedge that's the right size. Very simple. Not difficult to do at all. But it gives such a cool looking result. I wish that she had done this feature on her larger quilt ruler. I tried to do the math and the calculations myself and couldn't get it right. So there's definitely a trick to it. So here I made sure to do it on one side and then the other side, and then I sewed 2 wedges together to get a good size wedge, because these wedges are super thin because I'm using a 10-degree ruler. And so I sewed 2 together in the same color so that it appears larger and gives me a larger space to work with when it comes to my applique. And here I'm showing you that little tiny line that goes down the side of that ruler. Again, I wish she would do that for the super large one, so that way I can, do this on the larger scale. You guys know how I like to enlarge everything. Every time I see something, I want to make it bigger. I don't know what's up with me. I was looking at something that somebody else was doing. I was like, that would be cool, but we should just make it bigger. Make everything bigger. I don't know what that's about. So here I'm doing the exact same thing that I did on the black with this red. This has got to be the coolest color. I don't know that anybody actually has this color other than Free Spirit. Free Spirit has some really tricky colors. This is another Free Spirit. This is Tulip Pinks. One of her purples from the Dragon's Breath collection, I believe, which are her new solids. A new collection of solids by Tulip Pink, and they're just kind of rare fine colors. For the green I used a Petite just because I wanted a little movement. I didn't want it so flat. So here is where I thought I was going to be using the half rectangle triangle ruler by Block Lock. We'll talk about that in another video. But for this, I knew that I had to do half rectangle triangles, and I wasn't sure how I was going to do it and what the math was going to be. Although this quilt looks extremely simple, there are so many tricks and techniques tucked into this quilt. It is unbelievable. I can't believe that I have just started quilting and I attempted this, because this is some crazy stuff that happens in this quilt, in my opinion. So here I'm going to show you how I achieved my half rectangle triangles. I placed them both down on the mat, right sides up. Both of them are right sides up. And I'm cutting from one corner to the other. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? Now we're going to take them and assemble what we want the half rectangle triangle to look like. You have to do some toward the left and some toward the right in order to get a full triangle. Well, I shouldn't say a full triangle, but like a completed triangle. Well, technically, I guess those triangles are completed. You'll see in a second. I sewed them all together. I'm keeping the left ones on the left, the right ones on the right. I went ahead and chain stitched, which just means I never broke my thread. I just kept shooting them through. Now watch what happens when you open these guys up. I'm just going to do a little finger press here. It looks like I'm pressing hard, but I'm not. I'm trying not to distort the fabric. Not that I really truly care. You see? See how they come together? You need both sides in order for them to come together like that. Now on this ruler, I marked a 1/4 inch in, a 1/4 inch in, a 1/4 inch in every corner, and it's taped off to the size that I want. That's a very thin rectangle, which is why I had to switch to using this instead of the block lock. Turns out you can't cut any angle that you want with any ruler that you want. With the block lock series, there's a certain angle that you can cut in certain sizes with each of those rulers. I just wanted to be able to pull one out the thin air, and it does not work like that. So I did my own calculations, and I'm doing this. Now this is where it gets funky. This is going to look like it's not working, but the dot on the right and the dot on the left are being lined up with that center seam. And granted, I understand that nobody probably will ever attempt this. However, it's fun when you try new stuff. It's fun to jump outside of your comfort zone. It's fun to see if things will work. So I'm showing you here that that 1/4 inch in and 1/4 inch down is laying on the top, and that 1/4 inch down and 1/4 inch up is laying on that black. You see that black seam line? Now I'm going to trim this half rectangle triangle down to the size that I need. I need very skinny rectangles in order for this to work. I am so obsessed with this shape right now, guys. You will not believe the things that are coming based on this shape. So then you're going to rotate it around, and you're going to lay it the same way, but you're going to fit it right into that little blue area that's been taped off. And that's what makes it easy to find. You know that it's going to fit right there. And once you get your markings lined up, go ahead and trim off the excess again. And you can see that that fabric is lined up with that blue tape on the left and the blue tape on the top. This is crazy. This is crazy. To attempt this is so crazy, but I tickled myself pink, I tell you. I was just so thrilled with the way that this came out. So I'm doing that for this triangle, and I have to do the exact same thing for the other one, which is where I use the other set of dots, because remember, these are mirror images of one another. So we're going to go on ahead and try it with the other one, and it leaves you a 1/4 inch at the tips, so that when you sew them together, your 1/4 inch will be in there. Now, the way that I did these dots was not as exact as I would like it to have been. It came out pretty cool. It definitely has the vibe of what I was trying to duplicate or what I was trying to go for, but it's not as precise as I could do it if I were doing it again. So you can see me lining up that black dot with that black fabric, and I used a Sharpie to make those dots, not the dry erase stuff, because that stuff will come right off on your hand. I used an actual Sharpie. When you want to remove Sharpie, you take alcohol and rub it against a non-porous surface, and it should come off. You shouldn't have an issue with that. Now I'm showing you that these dots, and I'm showing you that the fabric is covered entirely by the blue tape. We don't have anything peekabooing out. And I'm just going to run it up and cut it there and cut the bottom. Then we'll rotate it and do the same thing. We'll trim it off. We are making half rectangle triangles, and I'm telling you again, this shape is so much fun. And I can kind of tell where this needs to be placed after you do that first cut. You just line it up with the blue tape on the second one. You could just line it up with the blue tape, or you can go on ahead and line it up with those dots at this point, because it should be pretty accurate. And then you're going to trim again. Half rectangle triangles. So much fun. This is how you do it without that block lock. Now I'm going to order a different, I have a block lock, you saw it in the video. I'm going to order a different one so that I can show you guys the different angles and different things that you can do with half rectangle triangles, which again, I'm totally obsessed with right now. What a random shape. It's a shape that I never thought that I would be all that into, but I'm into it. So now if you take them together and sew them together, I should get a very, very nice isosceles triangle. So we're just going to flip them right sides together, and we are going to take them over to my sewing machine, and bam, let's see what we got when we open it up. I believe that I did all of these with open. I pressed these open. There's a lot of bulk for whatever reason back here, and so I'm using my wooden iron to just go ahead and open these up before I take them over to the actual pressing mat. And I like this technique. And there we have a triangle. Isn't it pretty? I like it. So I made a ton of these. When I say a ton of these, I made a ton of these and still didn't make enough. This quilt challenged me so much. I thought I had finished the quilt, I thought I had finished the wedges, and turns out there was a whole section missing. And this was when I was very far along in the quilting process. I think it's because this wasn't a pattern that was already done. This was me coming up with my own pattern. I sewed some blocks together backwards. I'm telling you guys, this quilt kicked my butt, but I swear I'm a better quilter for it. So I just did a little bit of calculations, and I'm cutting out a square, a rectangle, and two small rectangles. Sewn them all together. That's the purple, the red, and the green. And now you just go on ahead and trim it up. And we are trimming it up, squaring it up, and then you just sew them together. And this is going to give us that roulette kind of feel at the very top of the quilt. You see how it's all going together? The purple, the red, the purple, the red. So much fun. And that little green strip there at the bottom, again, it's just going with that little backpack and that Russian roulette reel. It's kind of my interpretation of that, so that's what we're doing. So we sewed it all together, and look at how nice that comes together. Now here comes the tricky one. So if the half rectangle triangle wasn't tricky enough, I wanted to go for it. So when you look at the backpack, there is the purple wedge that's an outline. And so I'm starting off doing the same thing. You got one triangle going one way, one triangle going the other way. Cool, not an issue. It's not where it gets tricky. When you do these, you will get two of these half rectangle triangles, but they'll be the same. So don't think that you can just do one set and get a pair. No, you're going to get identical sides. So here we are opening this up, and I wanted to make it look like it was an outline. So the way that I did that was I took off, I think 3/4 of an inch of the green. So I'm lining that ruler up on the seam with either the half, no, it couldn't have been a half, it had to be 3/4. 3/4 of an inch line. Maybe it was a half an inch. I think it was a half. I take that back. I think it's a half-inch line. Then I'm going to sew this rectangle to that. And yes, it's going to look funky, but I need it to be, again, the outline. This is so much fun, guys. Quilting is amazing. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to square it up so that we get back to just a regular rectangle to the dimensions that I need it to be. And this probably, hopefully, does not look scary because it was scary when I was doing it. However, it worked out really well. So you're just going to trim up your rectangles, and it gets funky when you get to one side. One side you're like, wait, how do I move the ruler? But if you follow the lime green, it will show you which directions and which you need to cut off. So just follow the lime green, and it'll show you the straight edges, and then you just cut it down to a rectangle, which is the size that you need. And I want to say I was working with like 3 1/4 in order to get the size that I needed for the top of the wedge. Yeah, there were a lot of calculations, and again, I am just tickled looking back at this right now. Would I do this again? This is not my favorite quilt, but I learned so much. The techniques that I used, I'll use those again. So I'm doing the same thing. I am lining up the dots, but this time I'm lining them up with the original seam. Don't use the second seam, use the original seam. Because now we have 2 seams on our half rectangle triangles, because again, we want an outline of the triangle, not just a solid triangle. Let me know if this is making sense to you guys. I mean, I know you guys are literally watching me do it, but this is actually probably the most complicated quilt that I've tried thus far. And of course, it's the one that comes out of my own head, which is crazy. Look at how cool that is, though. Now, I think this was my test one, because one of them I did was a little bit larger, and I actually had to go back and use it in my quilt, but again, no worries, not a big deal, at least not to me. Because better is better than perfect. Alright, and then you go on ahead and sew them together the same way we did before, and again, I'm using this to open them up, and there you go. Look, we now have an outline triangle. See how these are thinner? I think I used 3/4 of an inch on the first ones, and I preferred to have just the 1/4 inch. So I'm going to trim up these the same way that I did the test ones. You guys are watching some more of my test strips. And you see how I have everything organized? And that pink one over there is another one of my test strips with scraps. I tested it a couple of times till I got it right. And once I did, oh boy, was I excited. I am using my Quilter Select rulers. You guys know I swear by those. They are the best rulers if you don't want your stuff to slip. And I say that because I got a comment that actually said that somebody does not like these rulers because they don't move. And they like to have a little slip to their rulers, which I can understand. There's something for everybody. But these Quilter Select rulers are my jam. The only reason why I don't use them for everything is because they have very limited sizing. They have more traditional sizes, squares, rectangles, nothing outside of the box. When you want to go outside the box, you run over to Quilter Select, because I promise you they have got out of the box rulers. You do not know what you'll get with them. So I chain pieced and I added those other blocks again. I did purple and red little squares on each triangle and then sew them together, so that way again I got that roulette feel with the black and red, except for here it's purple and red. And now we're going to use that extension on the ruler to square these up and to get the proper size. I purchased an easy press for this project. I was going to work in applique with fabric, but that was just going to take too long. You guys know that I am on a time crunch. I am making videos. I am trying to be an influencer, so
the wedges, they're all cut out. And then I decided to go with vinyl again for the accents instead of doing fabric applique. The applique was being mean to me with my Cricut and the 805, the Wonder. I was just having issues and I just don't have time to be playing. So I went ahead and cut all this out in vinyl, and I'm going to just iron it down. I use paper to size things to figure out if the size is appropriate or not. And then I cut the vinyl once I have gotten the sizing done properly. So I am going to sew these together, but I think that you get a better idea of the seam allowance and stuff if you just went ahead and sew these wedges together, as opposed to trying to iron them down when they are unfinished like this. So I'm going to sew some pieces of the pie together the way that I always do, like 2 to 2 to 2. Iron these down. I won't be ironing the ones on the end down until they're ironed to the other one. I hope that makes sense. Alright, and I bought an easy press. I bought the bigger easy press. I have the little itty bitty one, I have the medium one, and now I have the big one. So now my easy press collection is finished. Alright guys, I will check you in a bit. Bye. This quilt has given me the blues. So many random things happened on this quilt. So much going on, but it's finally ready to go to the long armors. Thank goodness, because this was a bear to do. But I think it came out really cool. So we shall see what it looks like when it comes back. Alright, bye-bye.
Okay, for the back, I thought I had it all together. Do you guys see how this fabric is running? I do not love that, because the fabric literally should be up and down like this, but the way that it was printed, it's running east and west when I need it to run north and south, if that makes sense. You guys are looking at it, so you guys see me tossing it all around and twisting it and all that kind of stuff. It made me use up more fabric than I wanted to, but I knew that based on the design that I was going for, I needed Jack and Sally to run up and down, not right and left. So not a problem, not a problem at all. We will just eat up all this fabric, and I've seen this fabric so many different times in so many different ways. I've seen the scale larger and everything, so it's just not a problem. We're just gonna eat up this fabric, and what else am I gonna do with it? And we're gonna make these super long 10.5 strips, and then we're gonna lay it out in a basket weave pattern, and then we're gonna sew it in properly so that you kind of miss the pattern. I think it's hilarious that I didn't even realize that this was wrong until I was editing this video right now. Like right this second. That just tickled me. You get what you get, and you don't throw a fit. Again, this is the back of the quilt, not the biggest issue. However, yeah, gotta pay attention. Need to slow down. Check your stuff before you take it to your long armor. Yada yada yada.
Okay, so here's the back. These are just 10.5-inch strips. So some of them are like 10.5 by 20.5. Some of them are 10.5 by 50.5, blah blah blah. And so my object of this game is to get the circle quilt to sit askew, like down. I want this basket weave pattern to sit in like the bottom left hand corner of the circle. We'll see how that works. Now I'm just going to sew it together. If you're wondering how I'm going to do that, those two will get sewed together, then they get to the yellow, then to these two, and that gives me a straight line. These two will get sewn together, then I will sew that one to that, so that whole section will be sewn together. Then I'll sew these two together to the blue and the blue to that, and then this whole side, because you can see the straight line here, will be sewn to that side. Basket weave, nothing spectacular. This was super fast to cut and put together. Well, we'll see how fast it takes me to put it together, but it was very, very fast to cut out. Alright guys, and then we'll take this bad boy to the long armor. Let's do it.